Ready to face the Colorado Rockies. Got to get your pregame hugs in.
Keith never gave me a hug before the game. I'll tell you that.
I think you probably were happy about that. Here's your Hyundai Rockies starting lineup. It's been a rough series for Raimel Tapia so far, but not for Ryan McMahon, who moves up to the 2-hole after homering in each of the first 2 games. He's tied for second in the National League in home runs with 13.
You know, we were talking earlier about that start that Marcus had in Colorado on the 18th of April. See the Toyota numbers so far. Since that start, though, he's gone 0-4. His ERA is approaching 4. So this is a great time for him to get back where he was before. Mets starting infield, Lexus defense. Tomas Nido behind that dish almost every day. VR, Lindor, Peraza, and James McCann at first base. James looked very comfortable there, by the way. And here you go. What day is it? May what, Gary?
May 27th.
May 27th. Brandon Drury, Cameron Maben, and Billy McKinney. Welcome to McKinney.
3 guys who were not on the team 2 weeks ago. 2 guys who weren't even in the organization 2 weeks ago. Billy McKinney, the latest arrival, traded from Milwaukee 2 nights ago. Not only will he be playing right field, he'll be batting cleanup.
Gotta love moms, right? With the sunscreen.
When I was a kid and we came to the ballpark, there was no sunscreen.
No. Yeah, exactly. In fact, you'd use tinfoil to maybe get more sun.
Go home, you'd be all red. You'd get a little calamine lotion, something. I think we take better care of our kids now.
You do.
I think that's a good thing. Already, Raimel Tapia steps in against Marcus Stroman. And his first fastball is up and away for ball 1, and we're underway. Tapia 0 for 8 in the series with 4 strikeouts. Had been having a pretty good season in that leadoff spot, but his on-base percentage down to .332 with this rough series so far. VR in on the grass at third against the threat of the bunt. And Tapia takes a fastball away, and it's 2-0. Stroman, his last start, pitched very well in Miami. 2 runs and 6 hits over 6 innings. Was sort of surprisingly taken out after 89 pitches on a day when the Mets were short of bullpen. They wound up winning that game in 12 innings in a memorable contest. 2-1 to Tapia with Ryan McMahon and Trevor Story to follow. It was that last start for Stroman. So he's had an extra day of rest with the rain out last night. And his slider is fouled away, and it's 2-2.
He's going over the numbers today on Stroman. In his career, he's been kind of the opposite of Jacob deGrom. He pitches better at night than during the day.
I don't think he would have wanted to pitch last night because he's already had 1 start aborted after 1 out. I don't think he wants to go through that again. Tapia grounds 1 down to first, and James McCann, who's become a regular at that position, makes the play for the first out. I mean, until 3 or 4 days ago, James McCann had never played a professional game at first base, and now you expect to see number 33 out there.
That was a nice hop there, but he's looked very comfortable with his footwork, even on the throws over so far.
Of all the position players that are on the sidelines for the Mets, and it's really most of the lineup, the guy closest to coming back now is Pete Alonso. Pete is eligible to come off the injured list Saturday. Luis Rojas has hinted that he might play a rehab game or 2 before he comes back, but he is probably the next man up, and so then McCann can go back to being a catcher. Ryan McMahon homered in each of the first 2 games of this series. He had 1 to right field on Monday. He hit 1 to left field on Tuesday. And quickly 0-2.
He's going to have one of those under the radar, solid, maybe bordering on great seasons this year, and no one's going to know anything about it.
Well, because he's playing for a team that's buried in the standings, but McMahon is really the breakout star on this Colorado team. 1-2 now to McMahon. I mean, this is a Rockies team that is clearly in tear down mode. Likely to deal Trevor Story, maybe Charlie Blackmon before the year is over. Both will be free agents at the end of this year. And McMahon is the guy that you expect them to build around for their next wave. Story on deck. That's poked the other way, and McMahon's got a base hit. So he got a change up on 1 and 2 and just went with it. And so the Rockies have the first base runner of the game.
You know, it's interesting. When we first saw him in Colorado, most of his numbers were the pull side. But this second series here, he's really showed an affinity to be able to go that other way, becoming even more of a complete hitter.
I mean, think of what we've seen from McMahon just in the handful of games we've watched the Rockies this year. We've seen him hit. We've seen him hit with power. We've seen him use all fields. We've seen him play Gold Glove caliber second base, and he's played well at third as well.
And they thought he was going to be kind of a super sub when they first thought of where he fit on this team. But now that they've voided their players, he's their star.
So now Story is 1 for 8 in the series, and Stroman runs a sinker inside for ball 1. Stroman has had unbelievable success against the Rockies. 3 career starts, all of them at Coors Field, a 1.64 ERA. Not too many guys have done what he has done in the thin air. Now he faces them away from Coors Field for the first time. And Story drills one, just foul. Story's the one guy in the lineup who has numbers against Marcus. He's 3 for 9 against him.
And he's just starting to get a little warm right now.
I mean, he had a Coors Field scoreless streak of 15 innings. How many visiting pitchers do that?
Yeah, nobody.
Well, the answer is there are 2 guys who had longer, Tyler Walker and Jair Jurgens.
Oh, boy, he came on like a comet, right, and was gone in 2-3 years.
3 infielders on the left side against Story. And the slider bends in for a strike, and it's 1-2.
Try to think of the things that you notice in the games that we haven't seen before. That high, ugly breaking pitch is being called for a strike all the time now.
And does that work in pitchers' favor?
Absolutely.
Because you think of a high breaking ball as being a hittable pitch. Is it still a hittable pitch with hitters' swings so geared toward the lower pitch?
Thigh high, belt buckle high, ugly slider. Yes, that's a great pitch to hit. But just think as a hitter, what do you see first? Ugly ball, not spinning up in the strike zone. You always lay off that one, or you're taught to.
And Story has to spin. 3-2. Charlie Blackmon hitting cleanup today, waiting on deck.
Story did not move until that ball was by him. Makes it scary.
Well, he's wearing the C-flap.
Yeah.
Kevin Pillar said the other day that he does not intend to wear the C-flap when he comes back after getting hit in the nose. It was nice to see Kevin out on the field today before the game doing some running. There goes McMahon, swing and a miss. The throw by Nito can't be handled by Peraza. And safe at second base is McMahon. Not a bad throw by Nito, but Peraza couldn't quite pick it. So Story is called out on strikes.
Nito
and McMahon safe at second.
Nito did a good job of getting rid of it quickly. Watch Peraza, though. It's kind of one of those balls that's in between. You're not sure if he's going to hit the dirt first or he's going to be able to pick it right off the top of the dirt. And he got it right on the bottom of the glove.
So a stolen base for McMahon, his 3rd of the year. He's in scoring position with 2 out for Charlie Blackmon. Blackmon 1 for 7 in this series. And the Mets stack 3 infielders on the right side against him. It is always important to score first. But when you're playing 7-inning games, it's even more important to score first.
I would say, Gary, as we've seen these games evolve, I think even benches are trying to figure out the immediacy of 7-inning games. I think sometimes they manage like, oh boy, That came quickly.
I mean, you just have to, when you get to the middle of the game, you have to consider it late in the game.
It's a sprint.
I mean, and that's a hard adjustment, I think, for people especially who've been managing for a long time. You're in the 4th inning. It's the late inning.
That's right. That's right.
And it's weird to think about it that way.
Thinking about all the 7-inning games that you play now, I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to reassess starting pitching and say, you know what, the most effective pitcher gets the win. Maybe not the starting pitcher gets the win, and you don't have to think about 5 innings. Just the most effective.
Yeah, well, even in 9-inning games now.
Yeah.
Blackman got a piece of the slider, and it's still 0-2. Mets are playing their 4th doubleheader of the year already, and so are the Rockies. Those are the most doubleheaders that any team has played so far. The Rockies have split all 3 of theirs. The Mets swept 1 and split the other 2, including the split against the Rockies in Colorado back in April. And Blackman grounds one slowly down to McCann. He gets 2 easy plays in the inning and gets Stroman through the top of the 1st. Mets come to bat with no score. Mark app today. Geico Mets starting lineup. Billy McKinney, just acquired. First game as a Met. He's never hit cleanup in a big league game before. Welcome to the lineup. You're hitting 4th. Tomas Nido's been the Mets' most productive hitter amongst this group. And that's what the Mets will send out against German Marquez.
Land Rover numbers for German Marquez. Had that complete game against the Mets in the 2nd game of the doubleheader on the 17th of April. His last game started was against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 7 scoreless innings for German.
Jonathan Villar is starting his 22nd straight game for the Mets. Among the folks in the lineup, he has the most home runs and the most stolen bases. 4 home runs, 5 steals. 3 for 7 in this series. And Marquez misses high 2-0. Marquez has taken a step backwards this year, in part because his control has been a shadow of what it used to be. This year he's averaging 5.2 walks per 9, which is basically double what you expect from him. His first pitch strike percentage has gone from 66% last year to 56% this year. And I don't know how you get around that.
Well, you don't. That means your whip or base runners is every time you look up, you're going to have 2 or 3 base runners. The only way to get through that is you have to be unbelievable with guys on base, and he's been all right.
Villar rips one into right field for a base hit. Blackman chases it down, and Villar will hold at first base with a well-struck single. Blackman overthrew second base, but Villar had already stopped. So Villar aboard to start the bottom of the 1st.
Well, I've been impressed with Villar's ability to get on top of those high pitches. That one from Marquez from both sides of the plate. I know he's not hitting for a high average, but he is dangerous at the plate this season. Whoop. That first throw of the day. You probably haven't been on the field.
Fortunate backup by McMahon. Otherwise, that ball's rolling around in foul territory. Well, here's Francisco Lindor trying to snap his latest offer, and he grounds one toward the hole. Snagged nicely by Fuentes. Out at second. The spin by Story, and they get the out at first on the 3-6-3 double play. Well, a nice stop by Fuentes to start it. A beautiful spin by Story in the middle. And just like that, Villar is erased.
This is one of the best 3-6-3s I've seen a first baseman ever who's right-handed. I don't know if Story had the spin, but it was nice style. Watch how far he has to go to his right. Throws a strike. Look at the hustle. We're not going to see the hustle back. We'll see the spin. And to get back and catch that all in one motion. And what Story did was the most important. A strike. Chest high.
So Lindor's latest offer stretches to 14 at bats. It's the 3rd time this year Lindor has had an offer of 10 or more at bats. Fuentes started at third base in the first game of the series, but he was more of a first baseman last year when they had his cousin Nolan Arenado to play the other corner. So it's only his third start at first base this year. Here's James McCann taking a strike.
See how far he gets off the base. That's the only reason he was able to get to that ball. Took that nice step out 10 feet or so, and that hustle back was the key. You know, they gave that error. Remember in Miami on that big play, Lindor threw it to Yamamoto. They switched it. Yamamoto now got the error.
60-day DL and an error.
I don't know
It's
how
a bad
they
week.
figured that one out, but I guess you could have given it to anyone. But
I have to say, Ronnie, I heard your explanation of it, and that the throw was not great. But to me, it hit him in the heel with the glove, and if it hits you in the glove, you're supposed to catch it,
you
right?
try sprinting.
Oh, I'm
and
not saying it's easy.
Behind you, hit you, and try to catch it.
Yeah. McCann goes down on strikes, so Marquez gets through the first, helped out by the double play. Today's City Community Home Runs fan of the game is Jerry from Boynton Beach, Florida. Hi, Jerry. Go to SNY.TV/CHR to enter. It was the nice hi, Jerry.
So Boca Vista's there,
it's
right?
not the Newman hi, Jerry. That's the ice cream.
Nice. Look at the families.
It's a great day to bring the kids, stay for one game or two. Concession stands doing a land office business. Joshua Fuentes leads off, and I'm calling him Joshua because he has decided that he wants to be known as Joshua. He was always Josh. He decided to change to his given name. He was asked if he was superstitious. He said no, but I'm a little stitious.
Oh, that's good.
Which is a Michael Scott line.
That's great.
But
I like that. Well, I heard recently, I don't know, it was a coach for one of the NBA teams, and the sideline reporter said, so Mike, did you think the defense? He's like, it's Michael.
3 pitches, and Joshua Fuentes is struck out by Marcus Stroman.
I mean, talk about putting the person on the defensive. Straight gas from Stroman, right by Fuentes.
Michael Malone.
Michael Malone, yeah. It's like, Mike, what are you going to do with your defense in the second half? It's Michael.
Oh, come on.
Yes.
That's just so unnecessary.
No, I agree.
Imagine if I did that every time Keith called me Gare.
That's right. Well, we'd be able to talk less.
Here's Brendan Rodgers. We'd be sighing more. By the way, it did not escape my attention that last night we came to the ballpark. We were ready to do Gary, Keith, and Ron.
Yeah.
We got rained out. We come back for the doubleheader today. 2 games. Gary and Ron. Just saying. I mean, I don't know how these things work exactly, but hi, Keith, if you're watching, sitting by the pool or in the jacuzzi, as the case may be.
Before the game was even rained out, he came out to me and asked, hey, what game do you want if there's a doubleheader tomorrow? I'm like, well, I don't know. What makes sense for you? He said, well, I got a 10 o'clock appointment with, I took a little piece of stone rock off my windshield. I'm going to get it fixed tomorrow at 10 a.m. I said, well, would you like me to work the 12 o'clock game? He said, yes, that would work out great for me. Next thing I knew, I'm working both.
And he's not working either.
Yes. Well, he is 17 and he is Keith Hernandez. And we are not.
Nor will we ever be.
That's right. There you go.
He's here in spirit. And in 17. That's ball 4 to Brendan Rodgers. Stroman issues his first walk of the day.
Rodgers had probably the two of the better at bats against DeGrom the other night with a couple of hits to the right side.
I would just like to say, Ronnie, that I'm honored that you are here today with me for all 14 innings or so of baseball that we're going to be watching. And, we'll get along without Keith.
You and I, if I have to pick one person in this world to do a doubleheader with, it's you, Gary. Absolutely.
I'm touched. And in the same booth. That's the advantage of having you here. I can't be in the same booth as Keith yet.
Yeah. Well,
we're still waiting for his 2 weeks after his second shot.
But he did set a record. He is the last person his age to be vaccinated in the United States.
Garrett Hampson at the plate. And Stroman busts him inside, ball one. Hampson 1 for 6 in this series. The one was the triple that got Janeshwi Fargas posted on the injured list. That's 17 now, by the way, on the major league injured list for the Mets, with Fargas added to that yesterday when the Mets brought in Billy McKinney to take his spot. Stroman just missing with that one. So consistently that two-seamer has run inside off the plate, and Nido out to talk.
It's also been up a little bit, Gary, which is always not alarming, but it's so anti Marcus. When he's at his best, almost every pitch is knee high or lower. And he's also, his best games this year, and we chronicled the one in Colorado, he is just filling the strike zone from the beginning he starts to the time he ends. He's been real aggressive. And he's been less aggressive in the last 4 or 5 starts.
Stroman's missed with 6 of his last 7. Well, there's no question the pitching has been fantastic for the Mets this year. What's the key to great pitching? Throwing strikes,
right,
having great stuff that they swing and miss at, and getting to chase stuff out of the strike zone. That's where the Mets have rated this year in those 3 areas.
Yeah, and the final one, the opposition chase rate, is because they don't walk anybody. They're ahead a lot of hitters, so they can make them chase that ball off the strike zone.
Statcast powered by Google Cloud. And Stroman gets a charitable strike from Adam Hamari, and it's 2-2. And when that Hampson talking to himself.
Yeah, Hamari's hearing it from the dugout too. It's a strike by the pitch cast, but Nito's sitting on the outside. The pitch is on the inside corner, so he has not really been able to hit the glove consistently yet.
Well, Black doing a little screaming at Adam Hamari. Toward the middle, Lindor with a great diving stop, and they get the out at second. Oh, wow! First the full extension dive, and then the glove flip on a hop to Peraza, and they get the force play on Rogers. That was spectacular.
I mean, see how far he goes to get that and then flip it out of his glove, and for Peraza to be able to keep that left foot on the bag, that was fine indeed. Watch that left foot. Goes, scrapes all the way across the bag, and the toe stays on as he makes that play. That is serious range by Mr. Lindor.
Well, as Francisco continues to struggle at the plate, he can still contribute. And that took a base hit away from Garrett Hampson and saved Stroman a whole lot of grief here in the second inning. Its defense has been probably the most underrated part of their success this year, and probably the most surprising piece of this team all year. I mean, you thought the defense was going to be a liability going into the season. It has been a strong asset.
Not only in the infield, huh, Gary? There's been some great outfield play also.
Both by the guys who played at the beginning of the season and the guys who replaced them, and even the guys who replaced them. Here's Dom Nunez taking outside for ball one.
When you're playing double play depth, it's that anticipation, and you know, middle infield guys get very close because of how much time they spend working on their craft before games.
Hampson, a base stealer at first, has got 9 this year in 11 tries. It's already been thrown out in this series. And that one just missed. 2-0 to Nunez. And so far, Stroman has only thrown 2 first pitch strikes to the first 8 batters.
You know, when Marcus is off his game, he kind of slows it down a little bit. You see him talking to himself as he's trying to figure out his release point. Big lead by Hampson.
Into the shift. Stroman covering, and Peraza throws him out. Nunez retired, and so are the Rockies in the second, helped out by Lindor. No score. His education of James McCann continues.
Well, the first thing that he does, real good job, is just let that go. He knows in the shift that Peraza's there, but he didn't bust back to first base. But he was covered by Stroman, who's the Gold Glover, very fast, and gets there pretty easily to make the play.
Interesting. First couple of strides, he was tentative coming off the mound, then realized McCann wasn't going to get back, went into a full sprint.
It's almost like you have to just keep that in your mind. He's new to the position. Always assume that it might be needed.
Well, now Billy McKinney gets his first plate appearance as a Met. Came from the Brewers, who had designated him for assignment after a rough start to the season. He had 92 at-bats in Milwaukee. He was hitting .207 with 3 home runs. His most extensive big league playing time came 2 years ago in Toronto. He had 251 at-bats that season. He had 12 home runs. So power is what he brings to the table. And Marquez sails one away, and it's 1-1.
I asked my buddy Brian Anderson, who's the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, about him. He said, you're going to love him. He said, big hustler, a good bat off the bench, and a good platoon player.
And he adds to the Mets stable of ex-Jays. Yeah. Right? They got Stroman and Pilar and Reed Foley and Drury and now McKinney, all of whom are formerly Toronto Blue Jays.
Kinney's been involved in his career in a couple of huge trades.
Well, he came with Drury from the Yankees to the Jays for Jay Happ. Also was traded earlier in his career for Jeff Samardzija.
Also, I think he was in the Chapman trade with Gleyber Torres.
Pulled down to first and handled by Fuentes. And McKinney retired one away.
Defense for the Rockies. It wasn't needed in that first inning. It says Dom Nunez behind the plate. McMahon, Story, Rogers, who looked good against the Grom at second base, and Fuentes. And Tapia, Hampson, and Blackman. Hampson can really go get him. Tapia has improved as a left fielder since his time in the big leagues.
Now Tomas Nido, who hit the go-ahead home run in the game on Tuesday. And takes his home run cut against Marquez, 0-1. Nido's home run was his third of the year. He's 1 for 7 in this series.
Got a hanging slider and did not miss it. And when you're hot, you're not missing those pitches. Good call by you, Gary. You added home run right from the start.
Well, the problem with C.B. Buckner not having a home run for the start is that it added to the Mets' injury woes. As Nido strikes out on 3 pitches, because the ball was ruled initially in play, Dom Smith, who was on the bases, was going first to home on what he thought was going to be a double, and slid awkwardly into home plate and banged his knee, and that's why Dom's not in the lineup today. They're hoping that Dom will be available off the bench or maybe in the second game today, but he wasn't in the lineup for last night's rained-out game, and he's not in the lineup for this game. I honestly was not watching Dom slide.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I never saw it.
Whether the umpires were going to figure out it was a home run. Slider for a strike, but I'm told it was an awkward slide where he was kind of half going in standing and half sliding. Brandon Drury playing left field today. This is his 4th start for the Mets. He lifts one foul off the right side, and that'll go out of play. So Drury has started 4 games now. 1 at first, 1 at third, 1 in right, and 1 in left.
Wow.
The only other Met in history whose first 4 starts for the Mets were at 4 different positions. In 2016, Matt Reynolds, who started at third, short, second, and left field.
Arkansas, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I liked him. I liked him as a player.
Played with Brian Anderson at Arkansas. Anderson is out for a few weeks now.
Left shoulder soreness.
Everybody's got problems. I mean, the Mets obviously have the deepest problems, especially with their lineup, where virtually every regular is on the sidelines. But everybody's got issues. Phillies have Harper and Gregorius and Real Muto on the injured list now. Marlins with Anderson. We mentioned the Braves earlier with d'Arnaud and now Ozuna. Half swing, and Drury stopped it in time 1 and 2. So that's part of why the Mets are, sitting in first place at 2 games over 500.
Well, you knew it was going to be a challenging year this year, coming off 60 games, but it'll be interesting if anyone from within any of these organizations pipe up about what they think the causes are, or if they just think it's happenstance.
Drury strikes out on the breaking ball, so Marquez with a 1-2-3 second. That's his 3rd strikeout. No score after 2.
All right, milkshake. Nice.
Oh, we got the Shake Shack shakes. The vanilla Shake Shack shakes are just beyond belief.
Are we saying thank you? I don't see any thank yous.
German Marquez, one of the best hitting pitchers in the game. You're expecting a little too much, I believe. Marquez, a former Silver Slugger winner, lifetime .224 hitter. And he lines one to short, caught by Lindor. So Marquez looking like a hitter. Lines out for the first out. Hey, let's head down to Steve Gelbs. His report today is brought to you by Old Dominion. Steve, how are things in the sun?
Gary, I mean, they're never great for me, but I'm making do with my SPF 100 plus right now. Marcus Stroman, we saw in his last start, he threw that changeup a lot more than we had seen at any point this season. 25 times. That's a new pitch for him. Remember, he picked it up a year ago from Robert Gesellman. Now, the really interesting thing is that's not the changeup that Gesellman throws anymore. Remember, last year, Gesellman was working on a lot of different things. He tried to throw a one-seam fastball, and so was looking for a changeup grip to play off of that. He taught that changeup grip to Stroman. Now, Gesellman struggled mightily with that. Hitters hit .333 against the changeup last year, so he scrapped it. He's back to a circle change this year, but Stroman perfected it, and it's been a great pitch for him. So, Ron, it's really interesting. I guess as a former pitcher, you could talk to it more than I can, but the same exact grip, for certain guys, it just works totally differently.
Well, your fingers are different. Your hand size is different. The way the ball comes out of your hand can change. I think guys, when I think of pitching and grips by pitchers, I always think that some guys have more of an affinity to be inside the baseball, and some have more of an affinity to be outside the baseball. For example, you guys watched Al Leiter here for years and years. He's more comfortable on the outside part of the baseball. I was more comfortable on the inside part. So it'll come off different.
So Al threw cutters and you threw sinkers.
Exactly.
That's how that works.
It all ended up in the same place.
Well, I did see an interview that Marcus Stroman did with Pitching Ninja this offseason about that changeup grip, and it's interesting you mentioned that because he said his old changeup grip, he was on the inside and felt that ball had too much run. This new changeup grip, he just moved his finger to the outside, and the ball started to dip.
The can goes a long way. Stroman trying to get to the bag, but couldn't get his foot down in time to get Tapia. Tapia with the slow grinder and his speed. And Stroman had to turn all the way around to try and receive that throw from McCann and find the base.
Well, it looked like Stroh tried to do both. Not only find the base with his foot, but also reach back and tag Tapia. And they're deciding, the Mets right now, what to do. As he goes to first, he's trying to reach with his foot.
He's out.
Yes.
Yep. The Mets are challenging the call. Looked like he got his foot down in time.
Yeah, he's lucky he didn't get stepped on, to tell you the truth.
Definitely out.
Now,
Shane Livensparger is the umpire at first base.
I will say that is one of the hardest plays to call if you're a first base umpire.
I mean, that's a great play by Stroman because, and you can tell me how difficult this is, to run in that direction, then you have to turn all the way around to get the ball. How do you then find the base?
It's a ballet kind of move. He's just that athletic that he has the ability and control over his body to do that. Just always afraid that someone's going to step on the back of your Achilles.
Right. Well, it was a tremendous play. Tapia knows he's out. He's seen the replays, just waiting for the umpires to tell him so he can go the rest of the way back to the dugout. Tom Hallion and Dan Iasonia are the umpires crew chiefing in the replay center, and I'm not sure why this is taking so long. He clearly got the base before Tapia did.
Plus Stroman again. This he had the time more than just a flat-out sprint because it was the in-between ball. And you don't know if McCann's going to shovel to you, if he's going to throw it early. Is he going to throw a BB, which he did throw at him.
I mean, McCann did everything right, and they do reverse the call. So Stroman gets himself a key out with a fine fielding play, his second already in this game. He's already won a Gold Glove in his career, and he'll probably compete for some more.
He's as good as I've seen, and not only just catch the ball back at him, but he can make acrobatic plays.
Well, we saw it in his first ever start for the Mets. Remember in Pittsburgh, that play at the plate?
Jordan Yamamoto tried to do the same thing in Miami. It's very difficult.
Sometimes it helps being 5'7". 2 out and nobody on. Here's Ryan McMahon, who has the only hit for the Rockies so far today. A single into left field in the first. And he takes the backdoor cutter for a strike. Stroman trying to find his way in a game where his command was off early.
Well, we saw the other night after the home run in his first at bat against DeGrom that DeGrom went after him with hard sliders in and then a changeup away because he was flat on the first 2 games of this series with that home run to right field and of course that ball running away at 100 miles an hour from DeGrom. Home run also.
Stroman throws a fastball by him, and it's 1-2. Only Ronald Acuña's hit more home runs in the National League than Ryan McMahon. We'll see Acuña tomorrow night.
Tatis has been hurt a lot, and he's still at 13.
Winker hit, what, 5 in a 4-game span? McMahon breaks his bat and pops one up into shallow left. And Brandon Drury under. 1-2-3 inning for Stroman, helped out by his footwork at first base. No score. Home third inning, Jose Peraza leads off against German Marquez. Peraza 1 for 7 in this series. And gets a first pitch breaking ball, flies it deep to left. Back goes Tapia at the wall. It's out of here! Jose Peraza with his second home run as a Met. And the Mets get the early lead. It's 1-0 in the third.
Well, if you're a smart hitter and you're facing a pitcher that's been struggling with his control, what is he thinking of doing the first time through the lineup? Really throwing first pitch strikes. And Marquez has done that here early. Got on the side of that slider and just hung it. See the side swing of Peraza, gets it way out in front, and that's why it was pulled and hit it right on the screws.
Cameron Maybin fouls off the first pitch slider. Well, Peraza has been struggling with the bat, but he was ready for this one.
See how in front he was. He was able to clear those hips, and as soon as it left the bat, you knew it was gone because of how far out front he hit that baseball.
Maybin trying to bunt his way on and fouls it back. Maybin trying to do anything he can to get a hit. He's 0 for 21 since joining the Mets. 11 of those 21 at bats have been strikeouts. Making his 7th start since being acquired from the Cubs.
He's hit 3rd and 4th, and now he's at 8th.
Right now, he is the Mets' prime center field option. But you know, those things can change in a hurry. The Mets are going to do whatever they can to plug the gaps, especially since it looks like, you know, most of the regulars and second string guys aren't coming back anytime that soon. That Mets home run means City will donate $2,000 to No Kid Hungry to help fight childhood hunger. Now more than ever, kids across America need our help. And Maybin down on 3 pitches. That's the 4th strikeout for Marquez and the first out in the 3rd. Well, the Mets posting the first run. They're 18-5 when they score first this year.
Cardinals are better. Only the Cardinals are better, and conversely, the Mets are 4-15 when the opponent scores first.
No. What that says is that they don't score a lot, but when they score, their pitching and defense has been good enough to make it stand up. There's Marcus Stroman, who's 1 for 16 this year. Mets are averaging just 3.4 runs per game, and yet they're over 500. And that'll tell you just how good their pitching has been and how much their defense has helped their pitching. Stroman up and in, foul tips it. Got twisted like a pretzel that time, and it's 0-2. I mean, he's agile, but he's not that agile.
Well, that's one of those at bats you're taking. He's smiling that you're like, I'm swinging no matter what. And as soon as the ball's about halfway there, you're like, wait a minute, this ball's under my chin.
German Marquez so far today has been more of a strike thrower than he has been in recent starts. And he strikes out Stroman with a slider. So he's got 5 strikeouts first time through the batting order. This is interesting, right? If you get him early in the at bat, you got a better shot against him.
Well, so far he's had a wipeout slider when he's tried to retire hitters. And what did you say, 5 strikeouts?
So now second time through the order, and Jonathan Villar, who led off with a hard single to right in the first inning. And that breaking ball bounces in.
Well, when you hang a breaking ball and the guy hits a home run off you, the next one you throw on the first pitch is going to make sure it breaks.
Game 2 of the doubleheader. Joey Lucchesi coming off his best outing as a Met in Miami his last time out. Goes up against Antonio Senzatela, who pitched a good game against the Mets in Colorado. And now 3-0 to Villar with Lindor on deck. See if they can stretch Lucchesi a little bit if he pitches as well as he did his last time out. Threw only 43 pitches and was taken out after 4 innings. There's a strike, 3-1. The explanation was that he had not done the between work start preparation that a starter normally does, that he'd been working out of the bullpen. Here's ball 4 and Villar is on. So Marquez, who had issued more walks than any pitcher in the National League coming into the day, gives up his first in this game. Get an inside look at recently promoted Mets top prospect Francisco Alvarez as he makes his way to Brooklyn on SNY's digital series Mets Perspective, presented by Verizon. Check it out now on SNY.TV. Alvarez was hitting well over 400 in St. Lucie before his promotion. He is on the horizon. It's the distant horizon, but the horizon nonetheless. They love his hitting skill.
When you're in the minor leagues, moving forward is the key, right?
I think his bat's ahead of his glove at this point, but they think he's going to be a terrific defensive catcher too in time. Lindor drops a bunt down. Barehanded play by McMahon, and the stretch by Fuentes, and they got him. Oh, wow. Another tremendous defensive play. McMahon with the barehand play throws out Lindor, and the Rockies have no idea that it's the third out. They're standing around in the field thinking the inning's still going.
Well, I think also they think it's going to be reviewed, and it's not going to be. Inning over, guys.
He was definitely out. Great play by McMahon. Terrific stretch by Fuentes, and we have seen some wonderful defense early in this game from both sides. If you want to go inside of the library, but you can stand out and enjoy the library lion.
That's right. Or maybe behind it in Bryant Park.
Always loved those Lions when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Trevor Story leads off in the 4th inning of a 7-inning game. Mets with a 1-0 lead. Story hits one into the shift right at Lindor. 1 pitch and 1 out for Stroman. That's 5 ground ball outs for Marcus among his first 10 outs. Boy, you'd love to be able to get out of this series with Trevor Story having been held in check. 1 for 10 now in this series, and Blackman's 1 for 8.
Just like you almost made it out of the series in Atlanta without Acuna getting hot.
Almost.
Almost.
Until that last at bat. We'll see plenty of Acuna this weekend, with the Braves coming to town for 3 starting tomorrow night. Here's that last ground ball from Story.
See the ball as it comes up, it catches him on the wrist and starts to roll up his arm a bit, and with the 2 hands was able to secure the baseball.
That's why they tell you catch it with that alligator grip, right? Wrists together, glove down, hand up. Sometimes that actually pays off. Blackman grounded out to first base his first trip. Launches one in the air to center, and Maben has plenty of room. 2 out.
My son Cassius is playing T-ball, so they're teaching him that gator, you know, the alligator with the 2 hands. So someone asked me, said, did you learn like that, the alligator? I said, no, I never heard of that until recently. So, well, what did they tell you? If you don't feel with 2 hands, you can't play. You're off the field. Like, oh, it's a little different time. But the alligator is big now. Focus is another.
So
big
basically,
word.
they were teaching you the same thing. It's just that your incentives were different.
Use 2 hands, or you can't be on the field.
As opposed to, we love alligators, and here's some ice cream.
Exactly. But focus is the most important word in young kids' athletics. Said every 30 seconds.
See, that's what's changed the most, because, you know, every little league team when we were kids had the one kid out in right field who was picking flowers.
Picking flowers or chewing on his glove, yeah.
But most of us were, you know, were there to play.
Yeah.
And we didn't have phones to look at between pitches. There's a lot more distractions in the world today, Ronnie.
Well, you know, it's hard for young kids is that they don't ever play where it's not organized,
right.
You know.
1-1 to Joshua Fuentes, who struck out his first time up. And takes the slider down from Stroman. 2-1.
Brendan Rodgers on deck. Joshua Fuentes. So I remember when Peter Alonso decided to go the other way, right? The Pete Alonso.
I remember when Roberto Kelly decided to become Bobby Kelly when he went in a slump, and then later on, because he went in another slump, he decided to go back to Roberto. And then there was Harry Rasmussen, who became Eric. And I don't know how that happened.
Well, I stop if Charlie Blackmon goes to Charles.
I don't see him as a Charles. Ball 4 to Fuentes, and there's the second walk given up by Stroman.
A couple of walks here by the pitchers, and sometimes, you know, when I see those, because it reminds me of myself, a little lack of concentration. You get 2 outs and no one's on, and you just lose your concentration for 30 seconds, and the next thing you know, you got a guy on.
Well, the other thing about it is, in these 7-inning games, you would love for your pitcher to be able to go the distance, right?
Yep.
So every walk puts a little crimp into that. Here's Brendan Rodgers, who drew Stroman's first walk. And that gets away from Nido, and down to second base goes Fuentes on the wild pitch.
Just a breaking ball in the dirt. A little late getting that glove down. And if you notice, Nido didn't go all the way down, just kept in that one knee down mode. When you do that, your body is turned 45 degrees, so anything that hits you is going to carry him off instead of carry him back to the pitcher.
So now the tying run at second with 2 out. Inside to Rogers. Rogers missed the first 6 weeks of the season with a hamstring injury. They've been waiting for him. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft in 2015. He's 24 years old. He's never really gotten a full run of playing time, but they expect big things out of Brendan Rodgers. And that catches the corner, and it's 2-1. Picked right behind Dansby Swanson and Alex Bregman in that 2015 draft.
Bregman was a shortstop, I think, at that time, right?
Yep, all 3 of them were. And Rodgers probably is the Rockies shortstop of the future. Well, the future may be really soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it would shock everybody if Trevor Story finishes the year with Colorado.
Yeah, they're not going to make that mistake, I would think. You know, moving forward, they've got to really replenish their coffers with some good young players, and Story is going to be desired by plenty of teams around July 31st trade deadline.
Well, Black now in his 5th year as the Rockies skipper, and he's going to be presiding over a full rebuild. And Rodgers fouls one off Nito, who had no idea which direction it went after it hit him.
Nito showing Adam Humari where that hit.
Tomas is one of the few who still wears that hockey mask. That became in vogue about 15, 20 years ago, and most catchers have gone away from it.
I don't know if Tomas's has it, but the hockey masks even have the springs in them now to help to absorb the blow.
The newer masks, the one that Tyler Flowers popularized with the springs, seems to be the safest one, and the one that most of the catchers have now gone to. Speaking of catchers, we're going to have a special guest next half inning. It's coming up on the 9th anniversary of Johan Santana's no-hitter, and the guy who caught that no-hitter, Josh Thole, is going to join us on the phone to reminisce a little bit with us. It'll be nice. Josh always was one of the sweetest guys in that clubhouse.
Yes, he was.
And one of the unsung heroes that night, he and Mike Baxter. 7th pitch of the at-bat to Rodgers, but first he steps out.
I mean, R.A. Dickey's got to give him a lot of credit for the fantastic years he had here.
Well, R.A. dragged him along to Toronto.
Got to have my catcher.
Right. Got to have somebody can catch that thing. And Stroman having trouble putting the brakes on this inning after retiring the first 2 on just 4 pitches. He's now thrown 12 more pitches in this inning. A walk and now a 3-2 count to Rodgers. Garrett Hampson would be next. Three-two coming. Rolled over down to 3rd. VR handles it. And the throw is true to retire the side. Halfway through. 1-0 Mets. Greatest memories of that night, Josh?
I have to say, guys, strike 3. Strike 3 to David Freese was something I will never forget. I have one regret, not taking my mask off, but that's it. The whole night was memorable.
You know, Josh, whenever and when that game was done, I went downstairs and ended up giving Johan Santana a hug. It meant a lot to me that he got the no-hitter with all the great pitching that's been here. And I never got to shake your hand. I think pitchers and catchers in no-hitters are forever linked. How many times do people ask you about that game?
Ronnie, I get asked about it all the time, and now I live up in Mets country, and I go down to the town, and this is what everybody talks about. As a matter of fact, I guess there was a replay on SNY last night, and I must have received 15 text messages saying they were watching it again.
Now, early in that game, Johan walked a whole bunch of hitters. He ran up his pitch count. I mean, did you have any idea that night had a chance to be special early on?
No, Gary, not really. I mean, Johan was not sharp in the bullpen. Coming out of the bullpen, it was just a normal night. He wasn't the same Johan that he was. And once we reached the sixth inning is when I really felt it had a chance to be something special for everybody.
Hey, Josh, your view of the ball that Mike Baxter caught. What did you think as it left the bat?
Yeah, I thought it beat him originally. That was my initial take. And then once I realized he had a good beat on the ball, and then I saw him crash into the wall. And guys, he hit so hard. He hit so hard into the wall. And it was one of those things. And for him to hold on to the ball, that's when it really that was in the seventh inning. And that's when it really was one of those plays that keeps the no-hitter alive.
What about Beltran's ball down the line? What was your view of that? What was your thought when you first saw it hit?
Foul. And I'll stick to that, guys. I'll stick to that. Adrian Johnson made the right call. I'll never forget that.
Our focus through a lot of that game was on Johan's pitch count and the agony that Terry Collins was clearly going through as Billy McKinney lines out to left. The agony that Terry was going through, knowing Johan's injury history and the number of pitches he was throwing. Were you aware of that as that was going on?
I was later in the game too. It was when it was becoming more kind of the spotlight was on it, with Dan and Terry having conversations, finding, is his stuff still the same as it was in the middle of the game? Those type of conversations. And I give a lot of guys that throw perfect games a lot of credit, because it's so hard. I mean, we had some wiggle room when you fall behind a guy to just kind of pitch around him, and you don't have to give in as much. But there was the pitch count thing that was constantly on my mind, at least from the seventh inning on.
What's interesting, Josh, is that the dynamics of the no-hitter is that it's not always the best pitched game of a particular pitcher. Santana's royalty. He's one of the best that ever did it. What was it like, as you see Nito up the middle with the base? So what was it like catching Santana when he was at his best?
Well, I mean, Ron, and you know how it is on the mound is when you have a go-to pitch like your changeup to go to, it makes my job behind the plate a lot easier. And his stuff got better in that game. His stuff got better inning by inning. His breaking ball got better. His fastball command just kept getting better. We were able to work the corners a little bit, and then we always had, when in doubt, we always had his changeup in our back pocket to use at any time.
Have you, over the last 9 years, had conversations with Johan about that night? And I'm wondering particularly whether there's any regret on his part for having pushed himself the way he did that night.
That's a great question, Gary. I have had a lot of conversations with him over the time, and we actually ended up on the Blue Jays together for a short time in spring training, and we talked a lot about that, and there is zero regret. I mean, that is a special night for a guy, and especially a guy of his of what he's done in the game, to just another feather in his cap. And I think it's something that, as a competitor, that's what Johan does. And he wanted the ball inning after inning after inning. He wasn't going to let anything get in the way.
What's interesting is I said to myself in 1992, I brought a couple of no-hitters into the eighth inning. And I said, if I ever pull one of these off, I'm going to buy my catcher a Rolex. Well, I wasn't good enough. I never got a no-hitter, so it didn't cost me any money. Did Johan get you anything?
No, guys, that's a great question, too. He said that he has a nice painting sitting at his house. And I hope Johan's watching. If he's listening, make sure I get him my address again. I'm still waiting on the painting.
Josh Thole, thank you so much for spending some time with us. This was really terrific reminiscing with you.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Josh Thole. I probably should have taken his mask off. Buildings. There are a lot of people in this town.
Yes, there are.
I haven't met most of them, but there are a lot of people out there.
So true.
Always think that.
I love taking the train in. You see the folks here at Citi Field. I love taking the train in, Gary, because I don't know. It really felt as though I'm with you. I'm going to work. I know it's a glamorous job, but it's still a job.
It doesn't separate you from everybody else.
That's right.
Garrett Hampson hit a ground ball that looked like a base hit his first time up, and Francisco Lindor laid out and made a spectacular stop, and then a glove flip to get a force. Hampson lays down a bunt. Stroman off the mound like a cat, and he throws him out. Stroman not only pitching well, but having a Gold Glove kind of an afternoon. He was on that ball almost before Hampson laid it down.
That was very interesting because what happened is VR backed up, so he gave the bunt to Hampson. The problem is you got Gold on the mound, so unless you get it past Stroman, then you're in trouble. And he got over there and backhanded it. It's not backhanded, but barehanded it and made the accurate throw.
I think he takes it as a personal affront that someone would try to bunt against him.
On me? Come on. Gold. There you go. I love it.
How do you feel about guys who bunted on you? Because you were a great fielder, won a Gold Glove yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like it was an affront. In fact, you know, if a guy's bunting against you, it feels like he can't hit you, you know, like he has to take advantage of a smaller part of the game. So I never took it like that at all. I just took it like, okay, beautiful. It's an out for me. It's an easy out, you know, unless, you know, certainly Vince Coleman or someone who had just tremendous speed. But and it was fun. It was fun when people bunted on you. You were able to be an athlete for a play.
Dom Nunez grounded out to second base his first time up. Stroman had to cover first on that play. And he grounds this one to the right side into the shift, and there's Lindor to throw him out. So 2 more ground ball outs to start this 5th inning for Stroman, who's really settled into a nice groove. And this is one of those games, right? He was not sharp the first inning or 2, but he has found it.
Ball was up, and it was almost like he had too much velocity. I know that's weird to say because we have a game full of velocity, but when his ball came back down to 91, 92, the movement was better. It was more subtle, and he's gotten a lot of balls from here in the booth. We can hear they're off the end of the bat.
Meanwhile, German Marquez has had some of the best swings against him so far today. Lined out to short his first time, and he had a good cut at that first pitch.
He had a year in 2018 where he batted 300. He also had a year in 2019 where he had 11 RBI.
And he lines this one into left for a base hit. Just the second hit of the day for the Rockies. And Marquez couldn't flat out hit.
Usually if you spin a ball on a pitcher, you're going to get an out 9 times out of 10, but not with Marquez. That ball was on the outside part of the plate, too.
I mean, there aren't too many hitters who are hitting that ball for a base hit to left, no matter if they're pitchers or not.
How about the leg kick by the pitcher? It's as high as we've seen. That was Justin Turner-like.
Funny thing is that the Rockies had somebody up in the bullpen. They got Jordan Sheffield up because they were thinking about batting for Marquez. Well, we'd bat for him.
Yeah, exactly.
There's Raimel Tapia. Twice has grounded out to first base. Now 0 for 10 in this series, and he slices one foul. Well, while the Mets might respect Marquez as a hitter, they don't respect him as a runner. McCann is playing behind him at first, even though he represents the tying run. And that slider in the dirt, and it's 1-1 to Tapia.
You know, we went right to break after the last question to Josh Thole. They had just one on air. I want to thank him. And from day one, you said it, Gary, he was just one of the nicest people to be around. If you met him away from the baseball park, you would never know that he was a big league player. Just so humble.
Not only that, but he was very insightful about the game. You could ask him any question about something that happened in the game, or pitching theory, or all sorts of, or his hitting style. I mean, he just got it.
Yeah, I know and
still does.
I know he's coaching his kids, but he's a guy that I always thought would be able to be a coach or manager on the big league level.
Peraza runs it down, spins around, throws out Tapia, side retired. That is 10 ground ball outs in 5 innings for Marcus Stroman. He's got a 1-0 lead going to the bottom of the 5th in a 7-inning game. Spider ETFs. Visit them on the web at sectorspiders.com. Doug and Andy weigh in on how the depleted Mets can survive the short-term future on the latest Shea Anything podcast presented by Verizon. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Road Ahead brought to you by WCBS, the flagship station for New York Mets baseball. On the radio is WCBS News Radio 880. Braves are in tomorrow night. That's on Pix 11. Fox says Saturday, ESPN has Sunday. We'll take the weekend off and come back on Monday when the Mets begin their road trip in Arizona, and they get their first look at the Padres next week. We'll say Peraza leads off. He has the tri-accurate precision play of the game.
Well, he led off that inning, and he led off against the first pitch slider against Marquez for the only run in the game.
All right. Well, you and I and Keith were talking the other night about the prospective free agent shortstops, and we talked about Corey Seager and we talked about Trevor Story, but we said the most exciting of the group was Javi Baez. I just saw a clip of something that happened this afternoon that Javi Baez did that I have never seen in a baseball game before, and I'm going to try and describe it the best that I can. Jose Peraza leading off, and he takes a strike. So Wilson Contreras is on second with 2 out. Baez hits a ground ball to third base. Third baseman picks it up, throws to first, and Baez stops short of first base and retreats toward home plate. Peraza hits it out to right center, and Hampson grabs it.
So the throw was up the line, like it wasn't a force at first, like the
the throw was on target.
Okay,
but no, it was.
It brought the first baseman off the bag.
So he wasn't out yet at first base. So he retreats toward home plate, and retreats all the way to home plate long enough for Contreras to slide in and score. Then Baez goes to first base. They throw the ball away, and he winds up at second. I mean, you'll watch a clip of it if you have any interest. And I watched it like 6 times just in between innings just now because I mean, you talk about things you've never seen in a baseball game before. That was something that I don't think anybody's ever seen before.
I mean, one of the things we love to say.
Maben grounds one to McMahon, and so Maben now 0 for 23.
Is that it doesn't matter how long you watch this game, you always see something new, right? And you've been doing this for over 30 years and a fan of the game your entire life, and you'd never seen that play. I'd never seen it either. That's the first time.
I mean, it is the wonderful thing about this game that there are so many quirks to it and different things that can happen in the course of a game that nobody's seen them all. Here's Stroman, who's having himself quite the afternoon. Struck out his first time up today, and he hits this one in the air to right center field. And Hampson will come over to get it. That retires the side. A 5-pitch inning for German Marquez. 1-0 Mets going to the 6th. All right, thanks, Gary. Science of Baseball brought to you by Hospital for Special Surgery. Ryan McMahon has homered in each of the first 2 games of the series, but you wonder why high pitches are tough?
This is a hitter at the top of his game. See where the pitch is and how he tried to get that top hand, the left hand to it. But once you drop that elbow into the slot against your side and you have that uppercut and that long uppercut follow through, there's no chance to get to it. Now the difference is that pitch now is called a strike. So the hitters have to be able to cover that pitch. But with the way and their approach in today's game, they can't put that pitch into play.
Marcus Stroman working on a shutout through 5 innings. Remember, this is a 7-inning game, first game of a doubleheader. And we go to the top of the 6th with the Mets up 1-0 on the strength of Jose Peraza's home run. And this is the way the Mets have been winning games when they've been winning them. They won 3-1 on Tuesday night, snapping a 3-game losing streak, trying to make it 2 in a row. Not going to see a lot of 9-2 games with this unit right now.
Yeah, the team you thought you had is not on the field. So what you have to do is play flawless baseball and win by a run.
You know the funny thing, Ronnie, is that even before they started getting players hurt, that's how they were winning games.
They got off to a slow start offensively.
So here's McMahon, who's been the most dangerous guy in the lineup for the Rockies in this series and really this year. Had a base hit to left in the first inning and stole the base. Flied out in the third on that pitch that we just showed you. McMahon, Story, and Blackman 2, 3, and 4 in the order against Stroman. And Marcus misses high, a ball and a strike. Well, Stroman went 6 innings and 89 pitches against Miami last Friday. If he can get through this inning cleanly, I'm sure they will try to extend him today with another game coming up after this one. And he misses with the changeup, and it's 2-1.
Biggest pitch of the game here for Stroh.
Sliders fouled off the left side, 2-2.
Again, we showed you earlier how he couldn't get to that high pitch. Well, that is, if there is an Achilles heel for Ryan McMahon, it's that pitch up in the strike zone, just impossible for him to get to.
It really blows my mind, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Because for the last 100 years, that was a terrible pitch.
Terrible pitch.
I mean, you're not supposed to leave a slider up in the zone like that.
You'd never get that ball back, ever. And now it's a place you go to for outs.
I mean, is he trying to throw a slider up there?
No, I don't think. It just was a bad pitch. He's trying to throw a back foot slider.
And he goes to the changeup to strike out McMahon. Just the 3rd strikeout of the afternoon for Stroman. And a big one to start the 6th.
Just the 3rd strikeout, but 10 of the 16 outs have come on the ground, so back to form for Stroman. Might have been the slider, Gary, but it doesn't matter because it worked. Down and in off the plate against McMahon.
So 1 out now. Story, who struck out and grounded out, now 1 for 10 in this series.
That's the first time in a while that we've seen Stroman employ a little bit of flavor in his pitching, holding that ball.
Might be the first time this season.
Yeah.
I mean, he had really taken that out of his repertoire, the hesitations and the quick pitches. There's a good slider to get ahead on Story, 0-2.
See Stroman putting his arm up, just reminding himself to get on top of that because it was a little flat slider, but the reduction in speed to 86 miles an hour got Trevor Story out front.
Off the corner, 1-2. Charlie Blackmon on deck. 1-2 to Story. Fly ball, shallow center. Maben got a late start in. Coming on, and it drops. Story takes a turn at first and holds. Maben's first step was back, and that wound up costing him as it fell just a step in front of him for the Rockies' 3rd hit of the day.
You see Maben saying to the right fielder McKinney that he never really saw that ball the way he needed to. But you're right, Gary. He stepped back. And the other part of this play is that Peraza never really got it in his sights and kind of slowed up himself. So sometimes you see a second baseman able to get out there for that one. He wasn't able to, and the step back cost Maben.
Wonder if he assumed that Maben was going to have that ball. But you can't assume.
Not in day games, ever.
So the tying run at first. Story, who can steal a base. He has 7 this year. Got picked off earlier in this series. And Blackmon fouls one at the plate, 0-1. Story was picked off by David Peterson in the opening game of the series. Blackmon today is grounded out and flied out, 0 for 2. He's 1 for 9 in the 3 games. Rockies have had just 11 hits in the 3 games in this series. And Blackmon takes a change up low, and it's 1-1. Three infielders on the right side against the veteran Blackman, now in his 11th season with the Rockies. Two and one. Jeremy Hefner's going to get on the phone. Nobody's been up yet in the Mets bullpen. Stroman's gotten 16 outs today. 10 of the 16 have been on ground balls. And he could use a ground ball here with the tying run at first and one out. And now he's behind on Blackman, 3-1. Joshua Fuentes waiting on deck. Well, among National League starters, the two guys today that two of the highest ground ball rates, the guy at the top of the list faces the Mets tomorrow night. Big pitch here for Stroman, behind in the count, 3-1 on a dangerous hitter. And Blackman hits it out to center. This one hangs up for Maben. 2 out. Big out for Stroman. Sometimes you have to challenge hitters.
You know, I was just thinking the same thing, Gary. You know, you got gloves behind you, and if pitchers say that, you know, this game I didn't make a mistake, you certainly make mistakes. But you sometimes are fortunate to hit right at people.
So 2 out. Story still at first. See if he's more likely to take off here with 2 out. Try and make something happen with Fuentes at the plate. Fuentes walked and reached second on a wild pitch his last time up. And he's late on that cutter. 0-1.
Well, both these two hitters, Blackman first, who flew out to center field, and Fuentes, do give the Rockies a chance to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So I'm thinking Story stays.
Fuentes 4 home runs this year. Bigger lead this time for Story, and Stroman throws over. You know, the Rockies have been a powerhouse offensive team at Coors Field, but even more so than usual, just a shadow of themselves on the road, averaging less than 3 runs per game away from Coors Field. They've already been shut out 7 times on the road this year. Good slider by Stroman to get ahead on Fuentes. 0-2. I mean, that's 7 shutouts in 21 road games.
Third of the time. Look at the target outside, ends up starting on that plane and just the bottom dropping out. No need to throw a different pitch. Just throw the same one.
Oh, 2 coming to Fuentes. Just got a piece. One might have caught the home plate umpire Adam Hamari. It's okay. It's in a very enthusiastic early afternoon crowd. Might have our largest crowd of the season today. Again, the 0-2. Just off the corner with a slider. 1-2 to Fuentes. Tough pitch to lay off.
Good sequence here by Nido and Stroman. Now you start to double think as a pitcher. You know, what do I throw? Do I throw another slider? That make it 4 in a row. Or do I go someplace else?
Early on in the game, he was trying to throw that sinker inside. He really's gotten away from that. See if he wants to go back. No, going to set up outside again. Story runs, and Fuentes lifts one down the right field line. Coming over is McKinney, and he makes the play to retire the side. McKinney caught it in fair territory. Stroman's got a shutout through 6, and the Mets lead at 1-0. 7-inning game. Looks like Edwin Diaz might be on call for the 7th. Marcus Stroman with 6 scoreless innings, 90 pitches. And Diaz has already loosened up some, and it looks like he's ready to get warm completely. Top of the batting order, Jonathan Villar takes a slider for a strike from German Marquez. Marquez gave up a home run to Jose Peraza on his first pitch of the 3rd inning, and that's all the Mets have gotten today. 1 run and 3 hits. Villar's been on base twice with a single and a walk. Lindor and McCann to follow, and the backdoor curveball misses, and it's 1-1.
Marquez has had 2 complete games in his entire career. 1 against the Mets this year. If he finishes this inning and the Mets win 1-0, he'd have 2 complete games against the Mets this season.
1-2 to VR. The complete game loss is a lost art.
I did it as a champ over there in Oakland.
And VR held the swing in time. Third base umpire Chad Fairchild says no swing. 2-2.
Yeah, you've got to pitch well enough to stay in there, but not good enough to be on the winning side.
Well, of course, it's easier in in a DH league.
Yeah, of course.
And easier in a 7-inning game. And VR goes down swinging. Well, we told you earlier about the Javi Baez play. We're going to show it to you. Against the Pirates, Contreras at second, 2 out, routine ground ball to third, throws a little off the bag. Will Craig, instead of stepping on first, chases Baez, and Contreras breaks for the plate and scores, and then Baez breaks for first. And he winds up getting to second. Now, of course, none of that would have happened if Will Craig had simply turned around and stepped on first base. But it was still fun. That was lined right back to the midsection of Marquez. And he makes the play on Lindor, and Marquez is shaken up. And that came right back at the center of his body.
He just got it right off the right hip. Throw some dirt on it, Herman.
Yeah, he turned that hip just enough that it didn't hit him in the gut.
I mean, if you're going to take it anywhere, that right hip off the backside is the place to get it. But it stings, and he'll be left with a Chub Feeney later. What that means.
Not anymore.
I know, exactly. When I played, the National League president was Chub Feeney. So if you got hit with a baseball, occasionally his signature would be imprinted in your skin.
Now you got a Robert Manfred.
They say third base the hot corner. We'll try this. Boom. I mean, barely let go of the ball, and it was on its way back at plus 100 miles an hour.
Well, it also tells you the kind of luck that Lindor is having right now.
Yeah, it does. And you know what's lucky for Marquez there? Didn't hit his pitching hand. His pitching hand started to get in the way, and it just missed.
Well, that's because he wasn't taking off his undershirt.
That's right.
That's the Zach Plesac injury of the week.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at that. I was taking off my undershirt, and I hit my thumb against a chair, and
that's one of those where the player is taking off his undershirt, ready to fire the shirt at something. Seen that happen many times.
So 2 out and nobody on now. James McCann. In the 7th and final inning, the Rockies will have 6, 7, and 8 in the order. Rogers, Hampson, and Nunez due up. And Edwin Diaz warming up like he means it in the Mets bullpen. So it looks like Stroman will not get the chance for the complete game shutout. McCann has struck out and grounded out 0 for 2. And Marquez throws his hardest fastball of the day at 95 miles an hour. That was an angry, my right hip just got hit kind of a fastball. So the question is it the post-game show or is it the pregame show? It's WB Mason post-game live, but it also serves to be the pregame show for the next game.
Well, they don't have to decide to do the pregame. It could be just all post and leave the pre to you and I.
It's the mid game. No. The pre goes to Steve. He gets to start the second game.
Oh, that's right. Is that why we haven't heard from him in this game? Is he
he's
like
got
preparing?
Got to prep for the open for game 2. I mean, you never know. That could be 2 hours from now.
That's right. That's right.
Here's the 1-2 to McCann, and he gets one in the air to center field. Hampson has room out there and makes the catch. We go to the 7th and final inning. Mets trying to win a game 1-0. Congratulations to today's City Community Home Runs fan of the game, Jerry, who as of now has won a Mets autograph and Mets prize pack. Hello, Jerry. Don't forget, receive 25 additional entries by donating $5 or more to No Kid Hungry. Changes in the Mets outfield. Billy McKinney goes to left. Khalil Lee comes in to play right, and Edwin Diaz in to try and close it out.
Well, that's the right moves, and you see the numbers this season for Edwin Diaz. They have been outstanding. That ERA is only over 3 because of the times he's been in there when it hasn't been a save opportunity.
Marcus Stroman went 6, no runs, 3 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, a wild pitch, 90 pitches. And Stroman now in 4 starts against the Rockies has a 1.29 ERA. Brendan Rodgers leads off in the 7th. And fouls off the first pitch fastball from Diaz, 0-1. As for this season, Stroman's ERA goes down to 2.47. So with DeGrom and Taijuan Walker and Stroman, the Mets have 3 of the top ERAs in the league. Game 2 of this doubleheader comes up about half hour after the final pitch of this game. Mets will go with Joey Lucchesi in the nightcap. Antonio Senzatela will be pitching for the Rockies. By the way, mentioned Taijuan Walker. He might pitch as early as tomorrow night. Mets are not sure about that. He's going to throw a little touch and feel session today to make sure that side is okay. Good slider by Diaz to get ahead on Rodgers, 1-2. Diaz struck out 3 in the 9th inning on Tuesday night to get his 8th save. Had a walk in there, protected a 3-1 lead. He's yet to allow a run in a save situation this year. Garrett Hampson on deck. 1-2 to Rodgers. Tap past the mound. Right there is Peraza. 1 out.
A lot of soft contact. The Mets pitchers have elicited from the bats of the Rockies.
69.7 miles an hour off the bat.
Yep. I mean, Charlie Blackmon hit a ball last inning hard. Hard to name any balls that have been hit hard. Marquez. That's
twice.
The pitcher.
Yep. Here's Hampson. He had the closest thing that he was going to have to a hit in the 2nd inning when he hit one up the middle, and Lindor made a diving stop to rob him. Then tried to bunt his way on, and Stroman threw him out. So Hampson now 1 for 8 in this series. Dom Nunez is on deck. The pitcher spot due up 4th in the inning. They've got an all right-handed bench. Maybe they should just let Marquez hit if his spot comes up. Good slider by Diaz. That slider has been just fabulous.
You know, I don't know whether it's the analytics or his choice, but the use of the slider has increased this year for Diaz.
And he's got 2 unbelievable weapons with his fastball and his slider. And somehow Hampson lays off that slider, and it's 2-1.
You know, your pitch usage of a pitch percentage might not change, but the way you use it can change. It seems like every time he is behind in the count, he has gone to that good hard slider.
And Hampson grounds one down to 3rd. 2-hopper for VR. 2 out. The ground ball festival.
VR's arm feels good today. I've never seen him throw the ball as hard as he has the last couple of innings.
And thus the Rockies are down to their final out. with Dom Nunez coming up. Nunez has been up twice and grounded out both times. C.J. Cron is out on deck. He'll pinch hit if Nunez can keep this game alive. And the backdoor slider misses for ball one. Mets looking for their 4th shutout victory of the season. The Rockies in danger of being shut out for the 8th time, all on the road. Pulled down to first. That's a foul ball. Great stop by McCann, who was playing right along the line. But the first base umpire, Shane Livensparger, had it as a foul ball. One and one to Nunez. Fastball, call strike, 1 and 2. And the Rockies are down to their final strike. One-two coming. He struck him out, and the ball game is over. A 1-2-3 seventh for Edwin Diaz, saving it for Marcus Stroman. Jose Peraza homers for the only run. The Mets play some spectacular defense, and they take the opener of the doubleheader from the Rockies 1-0.
You got to appreciate these Mets wins with a team that's undermanned, but just finding the right way to do it. Stroman was outstanding with 6 shutout innings. Diaz cleans it up, and Peraza with his biggest hit as a Met.
1 hour and 54 minutes is your time of game. Marcus Stroman had to find himself over the first couple of innings, was brilliant from there. Diaz perfect in the 7th. Still has not allowed a run and a save opportunity this year. Some great defense by Lindor, by Stroman, by Peraza, and the Mets have their 4th shutout victory of the year. Diaz able to celebrate another successful save chance. Going to the high heat to take care of Dom Nunez to end it. Tough luck loss for German Marquez, who gets the complete game defeat. And the Mets win the opener of the doubleheader 1-0. More coming up from Flushing in a moment.